So welcome back to the James Wingfield Racing channel. I've got another video for you today. This time, as you can see, it's a different format. I'm going to do a bit of a walkthrough. So lots of people always ask me about what kits do I use to do my online racing, and also what's involved. What do you need to have to join up and come racing with us guys and stuff like that. So I thought I would talk you through the kit that I've got and how I made the decisions that I've made and where I've got to now. And also, I guess, where I want to go in the future.
James Wingfield steals it.
So here is the rig itself. Obviously in a spare bedroom, so apologies for the messy background, but that's what we all have to deal with these days. The rig is what people would call an 80/40 rig, I suppose, which really just refers to these kind of aluminium extrusion bars. It means that they are 40mm wide and 80mm high, so they give a really nice sort of stiff structural base that you can use, and that's what I've chosen to use. It's basically a Bosch Rexroth, I think it's called, is the actual proper terminology for it. People call it 80/40 because of the size. Here on the steering wheel upstand, you see it's actually got 3 channels running down it, so it's 40 by 120, which just gives it that extra little bit of stiffness. This whole rig, it's hard to show on a video, but the whole thing might move together on the floor because I'm pushing it, but there's no flexibility in it. Certainly when you're driving, you can't feel anything moving relative to yourself. It's like a real car. You don't want the chassis to be flexing. You want all of the flex to be in a controlled way in the suspension. And in this case, if I'm sat in the seat and I think I'm turning the wheel a bit, but actually it's just that the whole wheel is moving around, it makes it hard to be precise with your steering. And similarly, again, with your braking in particular, but with the pedals in general. If I'm pushing the pedal and I think it's moved 10mm, but actually half of that is just the rig flexing around, it just makes it really hard to be consistent. I think a lot of people, if you're starting out, probably end up with a steering wheel on a frame and pedals on the floor, and then you're sat on a kitchen or dining chair or something, and they'll know what I'm talking about. When you hit the brakes, all that happens usually is your seat moves backwards and the car doesn't slow down. So a nice solid rig, solid base is exactly what you want. In terms of the electronics, the actual hardware I'm using, you can see the Logitech steering wheel here, G27. It's fairly old now, actually, but it still does a good job. Full force feedback, which is exactly what you need. It comes with a set of pedals, and it comes with a gear stick. In fact, I've still got the gear stick here. It's still plugged in at the moment because I was using it for a while for these buttons. The buttons on that unit are quite helpful, certainly in iRacing. So I've actually left it plugged in, but I don't use it anymore because I've got a button box now, but I'll come to that in a minute. That G27 is a good piece of kit. As I say, it's not very strong. The motors in here can do force feedback, and they can tell you when you're running over curbs and things like that, but it's not a very high strength motor. So I would really love to upgrade that. That's probably my next upgrade, is going to be to maybe a direct drive wheel, or certainly a Fanatec Club Sport type wheel or above. But I haven't got around to that yet. The Logitech kit is probably about 100 quid second hand, maybe 200 quid new if you want the steering wheel, the pedals and the gear stick. So it's a great way to get up and running with that, and a fairly cheap kind of steering wheel mount. You're probably looking at maybe 300 quid all in, and you can get kind of started at that point, as long as you got the computer to play it. Down to the pedals. Fanatec Club Sport pedals, the V3s. These are really good. These are a great upgrade, and I would advocate to anyone that the first thing to do is to get out there, get started, hence something like the Logitech kit. But as soon as you're running, then the first upgrade really is going to be the rig. So that's what I've done. And then my next upgrade was the pedals. So these pedals, clutch pedal has got a nice kind of over-center mechanism, which I might be able to show you around here. So it goes soft at the end, much like an actual clutch pedal would in real life. It's a nice feature. To be honest, you don't use the clutch all that much in racing. Obviously, you use it off the start line, but that's about it. So nice to have, but not critical in my view. The brakes is where this all really happens. You can see this is really hard to press. With my hand, I can hardly move it. And that's partly because in here I've got this adjuster, and I've also got the upgraded performance kit in there, which comes with even stiffer rubbers, so you can make it really nice and solid. I could make it harder than it is. Mine's set probably about 90% stiff, I suppose. The reason I've done that is it matches my Caterham and that's for me what this is all about. If I was going purely for ultimate performance in the sim world, I'd probably make it stiffer than it is, because personally I think it's easier to modulate pressure control than it is position control with your foot. So the stiffer it is, generally, the more control you've got over it, and the easier it is to be repeatable. And then on the throttle, that one obviously is a lot easier to press. I've added the damper. That was an additional bolt-on that I've got when I got the pedals. It's okay. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely critical, again, to be honest. I think I've set mine to the minimum level of damping, so it's not really doing very much, but I thought I'd try it out. So yeah, that's what I've got. In terms of gear stick, again, Fanatec. To be honest, they seem to be pretty much the best, or certainly one of the best names in sim kit. So I've got this, I can't remember what it's called now, sequential, I think it's a V1.5 shifter. This one was a Black Friday special edition, so it's got a carbon fibre top, but it's basically the same. I think most of them come in black or silver. Yeah, that's what I've got. It's in sequential mode at the moment, so you can see it's like I guess probably what a touring car or a GT mode. So you just push it forward and backwards and it centres. You can change the setting on the side here, and it's now in a regular kind of H pattern. So if I'm racing in an MX-5, for example, I'll be using it in H pattern mode. If I was in a GT car, maybe I'd be using it in sequential. Although, if I'm honest, normally, rather than use this in sequential, I tend to use the steering wheel, and we've got these paddles on the back. So the paddles for up and down on the gears. So usually I would use those rather than the gear stick in sequential mode. But it's nice to have it. Certainly in H pattern is very helpful. Again, whenever I'm doing anything for Caterham training, I'll be using this in H pattern, which is why I put a bit more money into that than a lot of people would. Again, if you're just going for sim racing, I would probably save the money on the shifter, if I'm honest, and put it straight into a steering wheel beforehand. Maybe do the shifter at the end. But yeah, for me, I wanted the H pattern. And actually, that was one thing that I really wasn't very happy with on the Logitech. This was really floppy, and I can't really show you very easily because it's not mounted to anything. But the feel of this shifter was really quite poor. So for value for money, it's still a great piece of kit to do all of it all in one and get you going. It's definitely the right thing. But if you're interested in the shifter as part of a kind of a race car simulator, I would be upgrading quite quickly. Yeah, so that's most of it. The race seat, you can see it's straight out of my car, out of my race car. I've taken the driver's seat and I've mounted it here. You can see by using this AT40, I've actually mounted the rear race bar on the lower end and the front one on the upper end. So I've basically built in a bit of a reclined seating position. It's something that for me I find quite comfortable, and as a result I've done the same in my race car. Obviously this is the seat I've taken out of the race car. I've made a full moulded seat that's got like an expanded foam around me, so it fits me perfectly in the race car. You don't really need that quite so much in a simulator because the G-forces aren't on you, but you do need something that's comfortable and that's going to be in the right position. I can't really give you a driver's eye view exactly because I don't know quite where my head sits, but the idea that I've got here is the steering wheel to the driver, and particularly the gear stick to the steering wheel is all exactly the same. I've taken all the measurements from the Caterham and it's mirrored exactly here, so that whenever I'm driving, particularly because I'm in VR, effectively I'm blind to everything that you're looking at here. I can't actually see it, so I need to reach for the gear stick and know that it's exactly in the right place. And it just helps with that kind of muscle memory of where's third gear, where's fourth gear, and it's just right for me. So that's what I've done. You can see one of the benefits of this frame is it is all adjustable. I actually did all this myself. I CAD'd it up. Obviously I'm lucky enough to be able to do that, so I just designed it all in CAD. Got the extrusion bars all delivered, pre-cut, and then you can see all these sort of 90-degree brackets just bolt together. So I've assembled it all here, and yeah, I was really happy with it. Absolutely rock solid. The pedal has the same kind of arrangement as the seat, where I've got these cross braces. Because of the way it all bolts together on these sliding channels, it's fully adjustable. So if I change my pedals, or in the future, I'm certainly planning to change the steering wheel, and if I need to move it around a bit, I can move this whole set forwards or backwards to make it, maybe move it slightly further away from the driver if the base is a bit bigger. Yeah, I can do what I like. Recent addition is this monitor stand. To be honest, I never bothered with a monitor on the rig at all because I use VR. But I've added that more recently, and it's quite helpful. It's quite good. it's also a place I've been working from home for a while, so I actually sit here when I'm working from home because it's comfortable for sitting in 8 hours a day. So that is probably the bulk of the rig. You can see I've got my tripod where I mount my phone, quad lock mount on there, of course. That is where I actually do all the videoing from whenever I've presented to you guys. So this is what you're seeing. I've moved it out into the middle of the room a little bit more today, which is why some of the wires are unplugged and things like that. But yeah, this is the frame that I use. One other piece that I haven't run through here is this button box. So again, as I say, the Logitech steering wheel kit, when it came with this gear stick, it's got the kind of 8 buttons on it and a D-pad as well. So effectively you've got 12 buttons on there. And it's got, obviously, in addition to the 2 gear stick paddles, it's got 6 buttons down the steering wheel as well. So I've got a reasonable number of buttons there, but you quite quickly need more and more in the sort of simulators that we use. You've got the gear shifter up and down, but probably you've also got a push to talk for your teammates or friends that you might be talking to. You might have DRS or ERS if you're in Formula 1 simulators. Certainly you've got settings pages to go through, brake balance changes, a whole host of things like that. And when you're in VR, you need to reset your views and move your seating position up and down in the car. So you need way more buttons than you think you do. So one of the things that I've added is this. Again, I've just designed it up at home and made it here. I've got a 3D printer to make the housing and just did the wiring myself. It's really helpful. Got these buttons in here, so I've got a load of buttons. I just went yellow for everything. As I say, I've got VR, so I can't actually see them. Most people would go for different colour buttons or maybe add labels to them so that they know what's what. But quite quickly you remember, and with the VR headset on, you're effectively doing it by feel. So I deliberately spaced them so that I could identify which button I'm on based on what's around it. So I can feel these kind of two-way switches very easily from in the simulator. And I know that if it's the button above, then that's the one I'm pressing. A couple of rotary dials. I think I use these for moving through selection pages and for brake balance change. Or I could do actually. I've moved brake balance to the steering wheel now, and I've got a multi-way down here as well for a bit more control. But yeah, really good thing to do. Very, very possible to do yourself. It's just got a little Arduino inside. For anyone who's sort of interested in coding, it's quite a good thing to look at. And obviously a lot cheaper than buying one. So I've made that myself and really happy with it. I've done 1 or 2 for other people as well, but not particularly looking to start manufacturing them and selling them. They do take a while to make, but if you do want a hand with it, then certainly let me know. I can offer some help. And the same with the rig, really. This design was really easy to do. You can adjust it for any other size or... I mean, the good thing with this is it is adjustable in itself. And by using the driver's seat, you can see down here, I've actually got sliding rails on the seat, so I can even adjust it a bit further once it's assembled like this. But yeah, if somebody wanted something slightly different, it's really easy to do, and you can add to it as well. Like I've added this bit later on. You can see the stand was a bit of an afterthought, but I just threw that together with a few bits of offcut that I had lying around. So yeah, really good. Would definitely recommend exactly the way I've done it here. Like I say, I've gone VR. There's always a huge debate over VR. Should you go VR or should you go triple screen is the usual discussion. Obviously with this, I've got it set so that I can mount one monitor in front, but you don't get a very wide angle of view if you do it that way. So what people would normally do if they're running the screens is they mount the single screen in front of them and then another screen to the left and another one to the right. So it's kind of a horseshoe arrangement in front of you, and it gives you a much wider field of view. If you do that, it's not too bad, but for me, the VR was what made it. That was really everything for me. It's what turned it from... People always talk about simulators and games, and say that like maybe the F1 games are that because they're a bit lower tech, a bit less realistic, and iRacing and Assetto Corsa are simulators because they've got a bit more in the physics models. That's probably true. To be honest, for me, the main thing that switched from a game to a simulator is the VR, if I'm honest. As soon as I'm playing with a screen, I kind of feel like I'm outside it, looking in, and I just really struggle to take it seriously. I couldn't put hours of practice in, or I'd end up losing interest, getting distracted by something that's going on in the room around me, or I don't know. I just found that I couldn't take it quite as seriously. So for me, VR was brilliant because as soon as you put it on, it transforms you straight away to the car, and it feels like you're genuinely in it. I've done a lot of simulator racing now, and after particularly, I think it was sort of this time last year when I first got out in the real car, having done a full winter of simulator work. I found myself going down the straight, looking down, because in the simulator, when I look down, I can see my lap time on a sort of overlay that's floating in front of my face. And I actually genuinely found myself doing that in the Caterham. And of course, there's no overlay in my crash helmet. And you think, oh god, that feels stupid. But actually, it just really goes to show you how kind of involving it is, and how much you're just entranced in the world of the simulation when you have got VR on. And I've done the same as well, or the other way around, I suppose, where my phone or something has rung in the background, and I've gone to pick it up and looked down with a VR headset on, and sort of got confused as to why I can't see my phone that I can clearly feel in my hand. It's it does really trick the brain. It's amazing. The immersion that you get with VR these days is huge. And that's all. My VR is actually quite an early one. It's the original Oculus Rift. If I grab the headset. You can see this Oculus Rift headset. So it has basically two screens in there, but because it has motion sensors, which you can see up there above the TV, and another one up in the top corner of the room there. So as my head moves around, as it's actually monitoring where this is, and it checks what angle it's at, which way I'm looking. If I were to walk 2 meters across the room, it would know that. And certainly there were some games, some of the kind of first-person shooter where you can move around. And it just works for all of that as well. Obviously, I don't really get into that too much. I just use mine in the sim. But yeah, for me, VR was everything, so I kind of straight away went for that. And it also means that the rig that you're looking at here is relatively small. If you imagine 3 screens, I'm going to have another screen. Well, the screens are huge, aren't they, generally? So I've probably got a screen that's wider than the rig, and then another screen to this side of it, and another screen the other side. So I probably would need the entire floor space of this room just for the one simulator. Which maybe you can offer that space up. I didn't really have the luxury of that. You can see it's a bit of a home gym at the same time. So it was a convenience for me to keep it nice and small and use it in VR. But mainly I just wanted to go VR because as soon as I tried it, I knew that it was for me. I didn't particularly get sickness or anything like that from it, so I just went with it. Yeah, so that's a quick look over the rig that I've got and what I use here at home. Obviously, everybody else has got something slightly different. For me, the steering wheel is probably the weak spot in mine now, or maybe a combination of the steering wheel. One downside I didn't mention really with VR, but the resolution is fairly low, particularly with the older kits like mine. So probably my next upgrades are going to be a higher strength wheel, which will help with a bit more realism for some of the heavier cars that do actually kick back a lot more through the steering wheel. And also even, I think, a bit of kind of strength training, endurance training. This has no particular load, so I could drive this all day long and it doesn't really exert much energy. Whereas I think with a higher direct drive wheel, I'd probably get some benefit in that way as well. So my next upgrade is probably going to be a new wheel, probably a Fanatec direct drive, as I said earlier, something along those lines anyway. And then the other one will be a new VR headset, which is just a high resolution version. There's a Rift S now. HTC have got some. There's a few options out there. I need to do a bit more research on that, but they're probably the next 2 upgrades for me. So maybe I'll do another video once I've got some of those. But overall, yeah, you can see very easy to do, very easy to make. You can do it yourself at home. And once you've got that, then you just need a gaming PC and you are up and running. So yeah, I definitely recommend it in these days when people are maybe working from home a bit more, or some people unfortunately aren't working at all. So having something like this at home, you actually get to really get the benefit of it by spending more time using it maybe. So it's a good time to do it. And yeah, come and join us in our JWR races. Cheers. Thanks guys. Bye.